Now with 2024 smacking us in the face, there's a whole new barrage of luxury SUVs on the market this year. Sadly, along with some of the great ones, I have a list of 10 of some of the worst luxury SUVs you're going to want to avoid, or you will regret it. Let's get into it now. Life's too short to drive boring cars. The first one that you're going to want to avoid in terms of luxury SUVs are... No, not that one. Actually, Lexus is pretty stout. That's one you probably want to buy. Instead, it's... Right there, we have this small luxury SUV. And what make is this? Well, clearly it's a Mercedes, the three-pointed star. We see lots of emblems and decals everywhere. And what you'll notice is it's quite small, subcompact indeed, and it has a very boxy assembly look to it. Now, on one hand, a lot of people love these. Why? Because you can get up to a 300 horsepower AMG-powered drivetrain, making 300 ponies, or you can get the base model 2-liter Turbo 4 that is very economical and punchy and actually makes almost 200 horsepower. There's a lot of great redeeming value. Mercedes has intelligently and deliberately delivered a vehicle that is more boxy and utilitarian for those people that want more storage capacity. So some things people are loving. The big new headlight design. Of course, you do get the stars all over the grille. That's pretty standard. And the chrome detail in the front. You do have a laser cut set of rims and a nice fold-away mirror, of course, with LEDs. Love that roof rack on top. You do have a large glass panel on top. And of course, here you have the big boxy back end of this vehicle. LED taillights on this GLB 250. And it's a 4MATIC. Yes, it's all-wheel drive, 4 wheels, all clawing at the asphalt in poor weather conditions. Beautiful chrome detail on the back with a set of exhaust tips. And that's why people are loving this. It's fresh, it's feisty. What about inside? The interior certainly feels fresh and new, very sporty and unique for a Mercedes. Now clearly there's some reasons to buy it, but there's many reasons why I don't recommend this for 2024. Number one, of course, extrapolating on the existing depreciation rate, you would anticipate about 47% of its value is gone in 5 short years, but there's a lot of technical reasons why you probably don't want this vehicle either. Until we see a few years where those bugs are gone, then I wouldn't recommend the GLB per se. There's a couple reasons in the cabin why you don't want this. There have been some historical issues with illumination on the center screen on this unit that actually illuminates and then it's gone. It illuminates and then it's gone. Some strange flickering perspectives, as well as airbags are a big issue too, which often leads people to actually have to swap out airbag control modules just to be on the safe side. There's also been problems related to fuel leaks, as well as oil leaks out from under the engine compartment, and underneath is essentially the front axle carriers. There's been conversation on some of the previous generations of them being corroded, and then it creates some sloppiness and some potential catastrophic failures in your suspension and steering systems. So clearly a big issue from a structural integrity perspective, lots of electronic problems, airbag issues, fuel and oil leaks, as well as the backup camera, which pops up when you put this in reverse. This flicks up and you get a backup camera helping guide your way so you don't back into that curb. But unfortunately, this has been a problem to the point where people actually have to do a reset and then it comes back and it works again. So clearly lots of glitches and gremlins. The Mercedes GLB isn't a horribly unreliable vehicle, but there's too many nickel and dime issues, suspension problems, and electronics galore that create problems for the customer and having to take this vehicle time and time again back to the dealer. Honestly, there's so many great vehicles out there, I'd skip the GLB at this point. Another luxury SUV is by this particular brand here, and it's Jeep. Yes, well, Jeep generally isn't known for luxury brand. They're clearly trying to escalate their image, and they're trying to become that luxury brand that all of the others they want to compete with, like Mercedes, BMW, and Audi. Now Jeep is in fact trying to apply all that technology as well as the imagery just to make sure that everybody's starting to think luxury when they think of Jeep. But this unfortunately is a vehicle that I would not recommend for 2024. Guaranteed you will regret it. But before we dive into some of the issues, why are people even buying these knowing full well that the Jeep brand has always been a problem area? Well, clearly it's big and bold. It's one of the largest Jeep products that you'll find. There's the Wagoneer and the Grand Wagoneer. Of course, we have this big bold grille, as you can see here. A lot of people are liking the style of that. It feels big and beefy. Of course, it feels very much like a truck. It does have oversized wheels. They're going after the Cadillac Escalade look with big mirrors and all kinds of great handles. Stout looking running racks. Here you have all kinds of great gloss trim, and you see lots more of that trim there with a stub out there for towing your favorite boat to the camper, if this in fact could do that. They're trying to play in the same arena as some of the big boys, but if you look at too much plastic on the dash, the armrests, the only thing going for it is the ventilated seats and a little bit of the gloss trim. Otherwise, it feels like a lowercase vehicle. Well, what sort of troubles can you actually expect? And this is literally why I wouldn't recommend buying one. Well, there's apparently a recall right now for B-pillar airbags. There's a piece of trim inside that's known to stick up and hang up, and that will prevent the airbags from operating properly on the curtain side. Of course, you have transfer case issues. A lot of people complaining about that, getting jammed up in 4 low or high. We have a rear differential issue, noise, howling, and issues there. The tire pressure warning systems, big issue, constantly causing problems. I've even heard of engine oil and coolant leaks coming out of the front of these vehicles. Steering system related troubles, as well as the accident avoidance system troubles there too. These vehicles are well known for a whole host of electrical gremlins and problems, which means this vehicle will be a lot of troubles in years to come. Personally, if you just want to get yourself a great reliable luxury SUV, the Jeep product is a lineup I could never recommend. You will regret it. And the next one is this little hot rod here. This is an SUV I would not recommend in 2024. We know in 23 it went through a bit of a redesign, but here in 24 it carries over, and there's a lot of problems. What sort of configuration can you get with these vehicles? Well, you can actually get a 2-liter turbo with a 48-volt hybrid system that gives you about 247 horsepower, or you can get the B8 version, which gets you all the way up to 455 horsepower, electric drive, 2 motors, and you're good to go. So what are we talking about here? Well, as you can see, it's a Volvo. Yes, it has all that great styling detail that they're always known for. Beautiful set of headlights, and I will give it the Volvo for the design elements. Of course, you have these gorgeous laser cut wheels, beautiful profiling on the doors, single access in, and of course, low profile roof rack. Of course, we're looking at the XC60 by Volvo right there, and it has a beautiful interior and lots of external finishing that brings people in because it's a gorgeous look. I love those tail lights, quite the design. Well, it's an interior that certainly makes Lexus blush. It's quite handily made and quite nicely detailed. But I really can't recommend the XC60 because there's been way too many problems. The tire pressure monitoring system, because it doesn't use your standard pressure monitoring, it actually uses a diameter and a bit of sensing programming to fix that up. It also has problems with propulsion faults. It also has electric issues in the center console that control all your different types of modes. Clearly, there's been a little bit of programming challenges with software and firmware updates. We also have black smoke sometimes popping out the backside, and because you have such a small engine putting out such an immense amount of performance, these vehicles just really don't seem to be up to the task. There's been many drivability concerns as well. There's even been a customer that complained the vehicle would not stop. They tried to push the brake down as they pull up to a stop sign, and it wanted to rev up to 4,000 RPM. Even applying brakes, they almost had to double foot it to actually get the vehicle to slow down enough and then to throw it in neutral and shut the car off just because it wanted to keep pulling along. It was a very dangerous situation. So clearly there's some programming bugs, some mechanical challenges, lots of electronic issues. And because if history is one to repeat itself, you too would grossly regret buying yourself a 2024 Volvo XC60. And the next one on the list for vehicles that are grossly regrettable, if you even dare to try to get yourself a 2024 version of this particular SUV, according to Consumers Reports, ranks only 33 out of 100 in terms of overall quality. And not only that, 1 out of 5 customers would actually repeat that mistake by buying one of these vehicles. Now, one thing they do comment is there's a lot of commentary about the exterior styling. GM hit the mark with this looks of this vehicle. It looks great. It looks quite sporty, and I believe that's truly what's bringing people to the table. I mean, they do have the Volvo style rear taillights. You have the set of dual exhaust, all carboned up, as you can see right in there. Of course, you do have this beautiful sight line down here all the way with set of beautiful double detail right there, and this beautiful mirror that is actually very, very popped and shiny. Of course, right here, love that headlight assembly, gorgeous. And of course, the big bold grille you'd expect and anticipate from Cadillac is right there. Now, of course, you do have these gorgeous nostril sight lines here. The vehicle definitely is a 9 out of 10 for me in terms of styling in this space. Of course, you also do get some beautiful alloy wheels and the little badges right there. Now, the interior, unfortunately, feels a little bit more like a Chevy Cobalt. And for a luxury vehicle, you don't even get a sunroof in this particular vehicle. But there's been lots of complaints of electrics, your center console, your controls, display, that flaking out, having to replace that. There's been lots of talk about people in transmission issues with jerking and shuddering. Take it to the dealer plugs in, doesn't tell them anything, they go set off and everything's good for a week, and then it's doing the same thing over and over again. We talk about coolant leaks, engine oil leaks. Of course, some of the accident avoidance systems up front have been problematic, so electrics seem to be a troublesome area for this particular Cadillac XT4, which is, again, one of those, as good as it looks, definitely worth staying away in 2024. The next vehicle on the list you probably should avoid buying in 2024. Guaranteed you're going to regret it. Now, you talk to a lot of people, they buy a Tesla, they say they love it. Well, that's what they tell you because they're embarrassed and they don't want to actually admit openly that they made a blunder. But anyway, we're looking at a vehicle here, continues to experience the same problems over and over and over again. I mean, think about this. Flip this around and punch this in. Now you have a flat nose and an oversized forehead like that. Doesn't that look an awful lot like the front end of this vehicle? So from a styling standpoint, it's not changing anytime soon. There are challenges with the looks of it. Another big problem with this windshield is a big problem. As you can see, it goes all the way from there. It carries all the way up to this top section in which you have this partition here, and then you have the Falcon doors that come up. Well, that glass here is a huge sheet, and you take any rock, small, the tiniest of rocks, you get a crack and it splits all over. That's a very expensive windshield, my friends. Not only that, that then transfers to you, the customer, through insurance when you have to take the insurance company to task to replace that. It's huge money. Now, there are workarounds. You use products like Clearplex. You coat the entire sheet and you're good to go, but that doesn't change the fact that it's hugely expensive. And there have been cases where they inadvertently crack just due to stress. As well, another problem area that Tesla has experienced, continues to be an issue, are these Falcon doors. Do you realize on the Tesla Model X, like we're looking at here, that center door section flips up? Those are the Falcon doors everybody talks about. They flip up, they look great, they're a great party piece, but they take forever. So they're problematic, and that has been the source of a lot of recalls, a source of a lot of repairs. More problems does not seem to be going anywhere anytime soon. Has to do with quality control. We're talking about poor paint quality. You're finding paint that has ripple in one spot and super smooth on another, or you're finding panel gaps that are wider here and tighter over here. You're also finding these gaps here on the Falcon doors. When they open and they close, every time they close, this gap looks different. So there's an inconsistency every time this vehicle operates those rear doors. So there's clearly some quality control issues with fit and finish. These door handles, sometimes they're more recessed and sometimes they're more out. Clearly some inconsistencies with a lot of that. Also, what you're finding are tires are wearing out extraordinarily quickly, just simply because of the sheer weight of these electric vehicles. They weigh a lot, and as a result, there's a lot of weight bearing down on these tires. They have to be specially made, and they cost a lot more money, and that is heartburn for consumers having to replace that. There's also been lots of troubles with suspension. Lots of extra weight on the suspension causes other problems there, and you're getting premature clunking, noises, weird sounds and effects coming out of the suspension system, largely because it wears out faster, and secondly because there are quality issues. Other issues like 371 miles claimed range in real life seems to be a lot less than that when people put the actually to the test, and you're finding vehicles like this go far less. It's subjected to extreme heat or extreme cold. You might knock that down almost half of its actual engineered life in terms of a charge capacity. Not only that, the Model X seems to take way longer to charge than its smaller brethren like the Model 3 or the Model Y. Larger capacity batteries intensely, yes, cause longer charge time, which again becomes slightly less practical. Lots of sensors in the vehicle, as it's all electric, as we know, of course, have been the actual source for a lot of failures and a lot of situations where these vehicles may have been involved in collisions, but they can also fail in the wrong way or the right way where they just don't respond at all. There's been lots of that. There's also been a lot of over-the-air software updates that in some cases cause glitchy responses and bugs. We also can't forget that the Model X has been subjected to NHTSA's 11 recalls. Yes, in fact, over 360,000 Model X's have seen major recall requirements to affect and implement some change because of some safety-related problems. Things like deploying side airbags have been a bit of an issue, malfunctioning seatbelt chimes, unexpected automatic emergency braking, and failing to stop at stop signs. There's also been some issues with customers driving along and realizing the vehicle's grossly speeding through particular zones, so the vehicle's not actually following the proper speed for that particular roadway, putting pedestrians, other drivers, and themselves at a potential risk, and even a risk of speeding tickets. So as a result, the Tesla Model X has still continued to be the least popular selling Tesla, and continues to do so until some major changes continue on in the quality control department. Personally, for 2024, look somewhere else. Leaks, underpowered headlights, strange exhaust drone, keyless entry and key fob issues, tailgate opening issues, throttle lag so it's not responsive, jerky transmission that's jerky and hits hard, noisy and stuttering windshield wipers, floaty suspension, and huge service costs are all reasons why the Mercedes-Benz GLE is literally one of those vehicles that you would probably regret if you go and decide to buy one in 2024. Yes, they definitely represent the brand in a big way. It's a mid-size SUV, and a lot of people are buying them. They're popular, but they're finding out later that there's a whole host of issues, tranny issues, electrics problems, noise, whistling noises from throttle and acceleration. There's lots of nickel and dime issues that sometimes become hundreds and thousands of dollar bills, never mind nickel and dime. So the Mercedes GLA, you definitely don't want to buy in 2024. And the next is this fancy dancy little SUV right here. That's literally at the end of the rope. Yes, 2024 may represent the last year of this particular vehicle strictly because they've announced they're going pure EV after that. But what we have here is a vehicle obviously made in Britain. Great little decals like this, and it says Jaguar right there. Fold away mirrors, one touch access in, and yeah, they have a lot of great detail on top. You have the big glass space, and of course that really sharp looking great rear window, and a beautiful set of haunches is why people are buying these. They look unique. They don't look like everything else. This one is the S version, all-wheel drive. You can get a few different engine configurations in this vehicle. The Ingenium 2-liter, 246 horsepower turbo 4, 2-liter displacement. Of course, you can also get a 3-liter supercharged V6 that gives you a smackdown of 395 horsepower and about 500 and change when you're dealing with a 5-liter supercharged V8 that's also available in the SVR version. So there's a few different makes and models. There's also a diesel in certain older generations, but clearly there have been some problems along the way. And yes, it was Jaguar's first attempt at building an SUV, and in some cases it was a win. I've done reviews on that in the past, but in other cases, sadly, it was a gross miss. What kind of problems would you anticipate? Well, first of all, let's talk about the smaller diesel engine. Smaller diesel engine, you could anticipate an issue with turbochargers blowing out. You could also anticipate almost surefire you're gonna have a timing chain failure. If you neglect that rattling noise, that could be the end of the road for that particular vehicle, as you could have irreversible, catastrophic boom, and then it's all over but the crying. Supercharged V6 engines as well as the supercharged V8 engines have also known to have water pump problems, lots of issues with coolant leaks. The Y-pipe system on the 5 liters has known to blow out as well, crack and start to leak coolant. So there's definitely been issues. Earlier generations have had drive shafts that have identified as being way too short, and that too has been a clear sign of lack of quality control right from the factory. Now that's not a problem anymore, and the latest generation is definitely getting better than everything before it. It's the old adage, you know, never buy the first make model, and Jaguar is no different here. Now, it's a great vehicle from a styling perspective. The interior is ergonomically nicely done, but there are some deficiencies in the quality in the interior as well. The fit and finish is marginal, although there is a lot of leather. Even that center rising knobby is a point of failure. That adjusts your transmission gear. That has also been known to be a problem of not rising. I think there's a few dudes that have had problems with something not rising. But anyway, the Jaguar F-Pace, clearly a great stylish unit, but the reality is that's one too that I wouldn't personally recommend for 2024. There's so many other great choices. And the next SUV in the luxury car segment I wouldn't recommend for 2024 is clearly what we're looking at here, the Range Rover by Land Rover right there. This is so bad, look, they even need 2 antennas on the top just because everything has to cost twice, 3, 4, 10 times as much money as your garden variety vehicle. Now clearly it's a good looking vehicle. Prestige and luxury is its middle name. And look at just some of the detail. Look how gorgeous and integrated that taillight is. Look at that rear bumper, how nicely thin, streamlined that integration is there. Look at all the black detailing here. Absolutely nicely integrated lights. More integration pop-out handles. Of course, nicely integrated rocker panels down below. And look at this beautiful stripe down here. Lots of gorgeous detailing. Of course, right here you have these beautiful lights on the front. And look, standard lighting for this Range Rover up front. That grille is pretty standard. And of course, look, heads-up display, more technology. Air ride suspension, more technology. Obviously, big brakes, tires, and rims mean more money with every bit of technology to keep this boat on the road. Yes, it's gorgeous. Look, the interior is literally fit for a king. But sadly, unless you're a king, you probably shouldn't buy it. You probably can't afford it. You're talking about a vehicle that you need to maintain it like most people maintain houses and cabins at the lake. There's going to be a lot of cost just to keep this thing on the road. I mean, look right here, for example, why some of the reasons why these vehicles have been so problematic. Of course, these handles, known to freeze up in the wintertime. These issues are problematic for sure. You get snow and ice in there and this thing jams up and it won't open up properly. That is a key problem. Air ride suspension, which keeps this vehicle leveled out nice. It ends up becoming looking like this, whereas it's basically the wheel is hiding in the wheel well. Look at this vehicle, the air ride suspension is shot. The rear differential has been known to be a big issue there. If you don't maintain it, clean out the ventilation and change your fluids regularly in that differential, you will have problems. You'll blow out a rear diff and you end up spending $5,000 or $6,000 putting a new one in. There's also been problems and challenges with brake systems, particularly the e-brake, where you put the electronic button to lock and engage the rear park brake. That also has been known to hang up and not activate when you need it. Issues up front with the engine, of course, coolant leaks. Of course, when we're dealing with some of these engines by Land Rover, Jaguar, Range Rover, a lot of coolant leak issues. You can anticipate water pumps, thermostats, and coolant throughout. You're going to have issues with that. How can you tell there was a Range Rover just parked here? There's been suspension woes with this, as well as transmissions where they get a little aggressive, and there have been problems with that. Electronic gremlins everywhere, and quality control where body panels inside of the vehicle have been known to pop off. So as great as these Range Rovers are from a driver's perspective, unless you have the King's ransom, you probably shouldn't own these outside of warranty. Even within warranty, you would anticipate some significant potential failures and big dollar maintenance and servicing. So the reality is, after 3 years, unless you get the CPO, I would toss this to the curb or don't even bother and save yourself some heartburn, because you will regret it in 2024. And yes, you had to guess an electric car would actually make the list in some cases. This particular unit is on the list of vehicles that I wouldn't recommend for 2024 due to quality control issues, reliability. As a matter of fact, 2 out of 5 is what Consumers Reports ranks the e-tron by Audi, like this one here. Yeah, it has the big oversized wheels. Look at those great calipers right there. But this is the e-tron right here. And yeah, very cool looking mirror and wonderful handles. But honestly, other than the style, get past the detail, because that's a good looking vehicle. It really is more about the problem areas that this vehicle actually has. Yeah, you have taillights that look wonderful and that gorgeous light bar. Of course, you have a nice detail as you go down the side, and the interior looks extremely extravagant with all the brushed aluminum and nice details. Because I've said this before and I'll say this again, Audi owns the interior quality, fit and finish. They literally have some of the nicest quality finishing, from quilted seats to HMIs or MMI systems that work the best, to just some of the cleanest detailing. It's a good looking vehicle, and that's why people still are buying them. But they have been mandated, and that's why Audi is bringing pure EV to the table. But there's been some big problems. Loss of ABS system, as well as the ESC, means this vehicle could be very dangerous, hypothetically, in the case of a failure of that system. It may not brake, it may not function through its stability control systems, and you may find yourself with an unwieldy 4,000-pound machine. There's also been voltage leakages and short circuits. What do you think when you short circuit a battery? Yes, it goes boom. That's right, nothing short of a fault. You see a spark and a boom and lights out, or a fire. There's also seatbelt related issues, which may deactivate prematurely. The knee airbag may deploy prematurely as well. Software, sensor related troubles. As you could expect, this is basically a rolling computer. And with too many sensors on board and too much electronics and computer programming, there's always that risk, and there it happens. Warning lights on the dashboard related to software programming. We're talking about illuminating for the MMI short circuit, default freezing, navigational guidance system problems, connection issues with the Audi app. And while some of them don't pose a direct safety risk, they are nuisance by very nature. We also can't forget about the soy-coated wiring. We know Honda's had issues with that, where that can cause short circuits because the mice and rodents get into it and start chewing it away, and that is likely a part of the issue, or will be more of an issue as time goes on. I mean, we have to hand it to Audi. They're really taking their best effort. They're implementing great technology, great luxury features, but the reality is this is first generation. And even in 2024, after this vehicle's only been in service for a couple of years, there is going to be issues. There will be problems, and there are issues there for sure to contend with. That's why you're probably going to regret buying it in 2024. And yet there's another luxury SUV that I wouldn't count in for the equation for 2024, simply because of reliability challenges, quality control. Let's talk about it. What we have here clearly is a Cadillac. As you can see, this is an Escalade. Yeah, they have the great headlights, and of course they have these great detail in the front. This vehicle looks bold and large and in charge. Of course, with the big grille, I love that non-colored logo on there now. Yes, and they have some great detail along here. Massive wheels, as you can see. big rocker panels down there, and this thing just goes on and on and on and on. Love the vertical lights. And what we have here is this 600. That's a beast. Yes, you can tow a lot of weight with it, and it looks great, full of luxury amenities. But it's not just the cute details and the great black finishing trim or the interior that makes you feel like you're wrapped in the lap of luxury. Sadly, Repair Pal rates this vehicle at 2.5 out of 5 in terms of overall reliability. We also know that GM has had a lot of problems with lifter issues on some of these engines, transmissions that jerk and shudder and slip. So the transmission, there's been recalls in certain transmissions, gauges and the gauge cluster flickering and beaking and changing and not working altogether, as well as the HVAC controls, heater controls flaking out completely and not functioning. And the big one, of course, are these door handles, strangely enough. These door handles, people say, whoa, rip right out of your hand. So the outside or the inside door handles have been known to come right off. They're not all that well put together, and that has been a real nuisance for this particular brand called Cadillac. And I know in a previous video I mentioned SUVs that will run over 300,000 miles. Yes, if you rebuilt the engine and get past the lifter problems and the transmission, the rest of it becomes nickel and dime serious annoyances, but because of the chassis, it will run a long time because it's based on a half-ton pickup truck. But it's still one of those vehicles in 2024 you'd likely regret, and I just can't recommend. And with all of that said, check that out. You're gonna love it. That's all about some of the worst engines that won't last 100,000 miles. You probably care about that because that might save you some money. Hope to see each and every one of you on the next one. We'll see you real soon. Bye-bye.